Hello, my name is Julie Gelfand. I am the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development in the Government of Canada. My office is located in the office of the Auditor General of Canada. I am thrilled to be here to speak to you today. I'm very sorry that I can't be with you in Azerbaijan. You need to know that that is very far from Canada, and so this will work as second best. I'm also really happy to know that there is actually a conference of young parliamentarians, because I think young people have an opportunity and an obligation to sort of take over from the past generation and to start building the future that you're looking for. So I'm really happy not to be with you, but I'm unhappy to be with you, but I am happy to have an opportunity to talk to you. The organizers of the conference have asked me to speak about a couple of things. They want me to talk about my role as commissioner. They want me to talk about the importance of this mechanism, this institutional mechanism in protecting the environment. I'm supposed to also talk to you about the relationship with parliamentarians that my office has, that we use in order to carry out our functions. And then I'm to provide you with advice or suggestions on innovative actions that you might be able to think about. So first, my role as commissioner. So my role as commissioner is as an independent agent of Parliament. I am independent of the government. And because my office is located in the office of the Auditor General of Canada, the tool that I use to provide feedback to parliamentarians is the tool of audit. It's called value for money audit or performance audits. And what that means is we look at an objective that the government may set, let's say reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and they have set that objective, the government has set that objective, and my role is to go in and to provide almost like a report card to parliamentarians on how well their government is doing in implementing what Parliament has asked the government to do. So in the case of Canada, Parliament has asked Canada, the government of Canada, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. My job is then to go into government, see how well they've been doing, and then to report back to Parliament. So my reports are written for parliamentarians, but what we audit are government institutions. So that's a big part of my role. I have two other pieces of my role which are mandated and legislated. One of them is to take care of a process called the Petitions Process. It's not a petition in the typical way of we think of petitions with thousands of names. In fact, in the case of Canada, any one Canadian can write a letter to any minister of the Crown, any federal minister, and if they write that letter on topics related to environment and sustainable development, my office manages that process, and the minister must respond within 120 days. So we get anywhere from 10 to 50 different petitions a year, and we report on that. Lastly, my role involves reviewing the draft Sustainable Development Strategy for the Government of Canada, providing advice on that, as well as reviewing individual departments' job in implementing their departmental sustainable development strategies. So in Canada, 26 departments must produce a sustainable development strategy, and our office is responsible for reviewing the implementation of those sustainable development strategies and reporting back to Parliament. So that gives you an idea of my role. A couple things I wanted to let you know about the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development. At a national level, I'm the only one of these commissioners of environment and sustainable development that's located in an audit in the office of the Court of Auditors or the Auditor General of any country. The only other one that exists that way is in Quebec, one of our provinces. There are a few other commissioners that have within their mandate either environment or sustainable development or the rights of future generations. However, they're not located in audit offices. These are both there are advantages and disadvantages to being located in an audit office. The biggest advantage is that audit uses a very strict methodology. It's very hard to say that the commissioner is making a mistake. Our audit offices rarely, if ever, make mistakes. While as if you're a commissioner of environment or future generations or of sustainable development and you're not in an audit office, it's quite easy for parliamentarians to say, oh, that's just the green person or that's just the tree hugger, and we don't really need to listen. There's not that same level of objectivity that I have being in the audit office. The downside, on the other hand, is that audit is only one tool and it's a backwards-looking tool. So it's difficult for me to talk about future issues with the government because my role is really the role of an auditor. So I hope that gives you a sense of what my role is as Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development in Canada. There are several other organizations, as I indicated, that do have different types of commissioners that are thinking about future generations, and you should look into them. And the one I would recommend highly is the one in Wales. So the Wales has a Commissioner of Future Generations, and that is the newest model of commissioner that has future generations in their mandate. So the role that my office plays in terms of protecting the environment. My title is Commissioner of Environment and Sustainable Development. A lot of my audits relate to how well the Canadian government is doing in protecting the environment. I can look at almost anything. In fact, I can look at anything related to environment and or sustainable development. So we've done audits on things like aquaculture. We've done audits on biodiversity conservation. We are looking right now at aquatic invasive species. We've also done some work looking at different industries. We're looking at the mining sector right now, what it's doing to protect, how the government is protecting the environment and allowing mining to occur. We've looked at issues around pipelines. Almost every year that I've been a commissioner, we've looked at climate change, and we report back to parliamentarians on all these issues related to environment and sustainable development. And that gives the parliamentarians an opportunity to think about what new legislation, what new programs are required in order to go one step further and get to the next step in terms of environmental protection. So my office was created about 20 years ago after the Rio conference, and I believe that we know that we've had impact. We know that governments don't want to get a bad report card. They don't want to get a B or a C or a D. They want to get an A+. And so they do a lot of work to make sure that they're achieving the objectives that parliamentarians have set for them, because otherwise they have the commissioner telling the departments and parliamentarians, you're not doing your job, and here is what we recommend. So we do have an impact, and we know we have an impact. As well, we've had an impact on the Federal Sustainable Development Strategy, making sure that there are clear objectives, that there are targets, and we also know that through the petitions process, we've been able to encourage the federal government to actually do some action and get the environment better protected. So I would say the role of a commissioner in protecting the environment from an institutional perspective is quite important, and I would highly recommend it, if you don't have one in your country, to think about instituting one. The third point I wanted to talk about was the relationship with parliamentarians. My relationship with parliamentarians is extremely important. I report to them twice a year. I'm in front of committees at their beck and call whenever they would like me to come and talk to them about one of our reports and our findings. They are my top priority. So we make sure that the committees that are aware of us or that take our reports are aware of the reports that are coming up. We always get called in front of Parliament, and we also encourage the parliamentary committees to also call the departments to sit at the same time as we do, so that they can ask the department questions around their performance and the performance of environmental protection. So I was only asked to speak for 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap up. My suggestions for innovative actions on the part of parliamentarians young parliamentarians in particular. So the first thing I would say is don't lose hope. The world is counting on you to pick up the pieces and to make the world a better place. The Sustainable Development Goals are something that we hold near and dear here in Canada in the Office of the Auditor General, and Auditors Generals around the world are looking at whether or not their governments are prepared to implement the SDGs and to achieve those targets. So I encourage you to focus in on the SDGs and encourage your governments to achieve those objectives. But the second thing I would say is to have a look at the other commissioners. So I believe there's a commissioner for future generations or for children in Hungary. There's the one in Canada. There's a commissioner of environment and sustainable development in New Zealand. There used to be a commissioner of environment and sustainable development in Israel. There's the commissioner for future generations in Wales. I encourage you to look at those institutions and push for a similar institution in your government, and then to push the United Nations to consider the establishment of a high-level rapporteur for future generations, or even an office where we start thinking about our decisions in terms of 7 generations, as our Aboriginal peoples do here in Canada, but thinking about policies and decisions from a long-term perspective, and that's thinking about our children and our grandchildren. So with that, I will end my comments. Again, I apologize for not coming to your country and to be with you in person. As I said before, it's a very long trip, and so unfortunately I was unable to do that. I wish you the best, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to contact our office. We'll do our best to answer all your questions. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. À la prochaine.